Hi, Scott.
Hi, Phil.
Thanks so much for taking time for this interview. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Well, allow me to introduce you. Scott J. Kolbaba is a director of internal medicine in Wheaton, Illinois. After a miraculous experience in which he was given divine knowledge that a patient needed a lung scan that ultimately saved his life, he became curious about whether other doctors had experienced such unexplainable patient interactions and outcomes. He spent 3 years compiling Physicians' Untold Stories, an anthology of amazing stories told to him by other physicians. The website is physiciansuntoldstories.com, which I will link to in this post. First, I want to thank you, Scott, for putting in the time and effort to write this book. There are a lot of great stories here, and I really enjoyed reading the whole book.
That's great. I'm glad you did. It started out as a 6-month project. I thought I'd bang this out in 6 months, and it kept on dragging on and on. And after a while, you just can't stop, and the stories became more and more amazing. So it was a fun work. It was a lot
Yes,
of fun.
that's the experience of a lot of first-time authors. It takes a lot longer to do the book than you think it will.
Yes.
Well, to start off, what can people watching this interview expect to find when they open up your book?
Um, I think you never know quite what the bottom line of a book is going to be until it all comes together. And uh, the book, I think the main take-home lesson from the book is there's something else out there that doctors recognize that, but they don't talk about it because they'd be embarrassed or they'd be worried that they would be criticized for telling some amazing experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought I'd include doctors only initially, and um, I was thrilled that they were able to trust me with their stories that they really don't tell anyone. I've had some doctors say, I only told my family, I didn't tell anyone else.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's an anthology of doctor stories of amazing experiences that they've had in their lives. Some cures, but mostly not miracle cures, mostly just miracles that happened to their doctors and their families. And it was fun to write, and it was amazing to learn how many doctors have actually had these experiences.
That's great. Well, you spoke with, I believe, 26 other physicians in all different specialties. And
Right.
on the cover of your book, you write, miraculous experiences doctors are hesitant to share with their patients or anyone. Do you really think these doctors risk their reputations by sharing their stories?
I think they did. I think the doctors did too initially. It's turned out, though, that these stories have gotten them great notoriety.
Mm-hmm.
We had one doctor, as a matter of fact, that wanted to remain anonymous initially. After he saw what happened to the other doctors, he said, "No, no, I want my name to be out
Oh,
there now. I want to be included with the group." But these are stories about premonitions, about visions, about dreams of patients being cured, having a disease that they didn't know about, that the doctor was then able to cure them based on that dream. These are things that ordinary routine doctors don't like to admit and don't like to talk about. And I thought to myself, why would these doctors want to come forward and share these stories with me and publish them to the world? And I thought there's a couple reasons. I thought about this a lot, and one of the reasons I think is they trusted me. I've been around for a long time. I'm a doctor to many of the doctors. We share patients together, and we work well together. But I think the real reason is, and I mentioned this in the book, these doctors are mostly all do-gooders. And that's the term I used in the book. They want to do something good in the world every day. They want to save someone. They want to cure cancer. They want to do something good in the world. And I think they recognize that getting these stories out would give hope to people, would give them peace in this crazy world, and would give them a sense there's something else out there that loves us, that looks after us, that's involved with our lives more than we realize. And I think if people realize that, it's going to be a better world.
isn't that why most doctors get into the profession? Because they want to save lives and be do-gooders?
I think it is. I think it is. My editor was funny. She said, after reading all these stories and reading some of the bios from the doctors, these are really noble doctors. And I
Mm-hmm.
said, they really are. They're good guys and good girls. They want to do some good in the world, and they every day they want to do something positive. We write a little article to get into medical school, in your application, there's a little page on, why you want to be a doctor. And everyone says they want to, cure cancer, do good, to go out and save the world. And, even the doctors that have been out for 20 or 30 or 40 years still have the same ideas. They still want to do that very thing. It's amazing and gratifying.
I can tell that the doctors, I read the bios too in the back of the book, and they are indeed noble people. In fact, publicizing their story, I guess you could say, is their Nobel Prize. But so Dr. Anonymous in the second printing, is he going to be revealed?
Yes, that was John Kowalski, and when we had the launch, most of the doctors were there at the launch, and he felt excluded, and so he came up to me and he said, please, can I be part of this group? I want to be known as one of the doctors in this group. So it was really funny. So I can announce his name now, John Kowalski, an anesthesiologist.
Well, you say that a common theme in these stories is that you and the doctors you interviewed recognize a universal force that helped them in their lives and practices. Did it surprise you that so many other doctors had such a deep faith?
It did a little bit. And I interviewed about 200 doctors, and lots of the doctors don't. I don't think very many doctors talk about their faith, talk about going to church, religion, and so forth. We don't talk about those kinds of things. We talk about, patients and what disease they had, and gee, it was a good thing that we ordered this test or that test or whatever. But doctors don't tend to talk about spiritual things very much at all. And many doctors don't go to church, and so I was amazed. Very amazed at some of the doctors that are incredibly spiritual, even though they don't go to church, they don't belong to a formal religion. But I was very surprised, and the doctors were too. The doctors were talking when we all got together. They were saying to each other, "I never knew this about you." It was a lot of fun.
It sounds like it. Now,
yeah.
It also sounds like you didn't choose to write this book; it chose you. Is that the feeling you had, and that you were given this assignment and you felt compelled to do it?
I hate to admit that. I hate to admit that I would be anyone special, that I would be given an assignment to write a book like this. But, as I was going along, funny things would happen, Phil, to me. I would just fall into certain situations. Let me give you an example. I was looking for, I didn't have an agent, and I was looking for an agent, an acting agent, or someone to advise me on the book. And I was looking for stories online, so I went online, and Ben Carson, our new cabinet member, has some wonderful stories. And I was trying to contact him, so I went onto a site and Googled Ben Carson. And as I was scrolling down the site, I came across a picture of a person that I knew. I thought, oh my goodness, I know that person. And he was the president of the publishing house that published Ben Carson's book, and he was my patient. And so I contacted him and I said, I've got these stories. Can we have lunch? And maybe you can tell me if they're worth anything. And so we had lunch, and I told him some of the stories. And as I was eating, I wasn't paying much attention to what he was doing. I was eating and telling stories and eating and telling stories. And I looked up after about 3 or 4 stories. He had tears in his eyes. And I thought, oh my goodness, this must be really moving. I must have something here. And he said, you've got to write this down. So he became my acting agent and my advisor. And things like that kept happening to me the whole time I was writing this book. So as if I was being guided. If I wanted to find a doc that I couldn't find because he'd retired, I would go to some function, and who would walk through the door but that doctor? I mean, over and over, things like that kept happening that made me think there's something strange happening here, and I need to finish this book.